welcome to our show for We the People. It's On Second Thought again with William Wagner, your host, and my famous guest is Merrell Fankhauser with us here live, not in Hawaii. You're right here, aren't you, Merrell?
I'm right here, right now.
Right here, live in the studio. And there's a reason he's here. He had an album, and we opened the show with his music from a song called Lila on his album called
Chappaquiddick.
Okay, Merrell, this Chappaquiddick album has a song. I understand now it's coming out in a movie. And you're the most non-political guy I know. I mean, it's just all about music for you. But your song is going to be used in this movie called Chappaquiddick?
Yes, it's the story about the event that happened in 1969 when Ted Kennedy drove off of that bridge with Mary Jo Chappaquiddick.
That's right. I remember that. I actually was alive, just back from Vietnam, I think. We're about to come back. Yeah, I was just back from Vietnam, I think, and it was all the news. U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy had this terrible accident, but he survived.
He survived.
He survived, but his female partner for the night, named Mary Jo Chappaquiddick, drowned in his car. I think it was a government car.
Yeah, they left some party, and they said they had all been drinking, and of course, you know, driving home on that little winding road. And he supposedly didn't navigate the turn and ran off the bridge and swam to shore, and she drowned.
That's the story. And then a day or two later, we heard a story that he was asked, well, if you swam, how come you showed up in dry clothes? And he said, oh, I rowed a boat. I didn't. And so we had two conflicting stories, and I was scratching my head. I'm a young man. I'm just back from Vietnam in '69, and I'm thinking, the story has conflicting statements in it, just like most everything connected to the Kennedy. By the way, today is November 22nd. Happy birthday to me.
Yeah.
Only 72 years old. Only got 50 years left to live. I hope. Thank you, Merrell. I got a birthday card from Merrell and his lady, Jane. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
But a sad thing happened here with the Kennedys. First, JFK, and I hope you saw my show on Comcast Cable last night. It was all about the Bush crime syndicate whacking JFK and how they had to use Sturgis, a mafia guy, and they had to use all these scummy people, and they were all very well interlinked with the CIA. And yet the CIA was able to cover it all up, so LBJ would never be exposed as one of the conspirators. But that was on my show last night on the repeat if you saw it. Today, we're talking about this album called Chappaquiddick.
You'll get it.
Chappaquiddick.
It was a name
I
made up in about 1966 because that was coming on to the summer of love and everything had to be psychedelic. So I sat down with a piece of paper and a pencil and I took the last names of everybody and took the first two letters, F.A. for Fankhauser, my last name, P.A.R. for Parrish, the bass player, D.O. for Dodd, the other guitar player, and the drummer was Dick Lee. And I came up with Chappaquiddick, and I said, hey guys, this is the name for our new band. And they went, what? And I said, yeah, Chappaquiddick. And then when I told the record label that we were on, the title of the album, he said, what? A paper doily? And I said, no. And I had to correct it. And then all of a sudden, everybody thought it was great. We finished the album. I didn't think that much of it. It was a good album, had a lot of folk rock and, you know, stuff of the era.
Stuff of that era. Now, that's you on the far left.
Yes.
Let's see. On the far left, that's you as a young guy with like a Beatle cut.
Yeah, Beatle cut. That's when the Beatle cuts were popular. And we wanted to look psychedelic, William, so we were in a studio in Hollywood, a photography studio, and we went, well, all we have is normal clothes. What are we going to do? And the guy goes, well, I got some old drapes here in the storeroom. So we took a bunch of drapes, and two of the guys ended up looking like American Indians. and that became the picture. So I just discounted the album, but then I played it for Harry Nilsson's publisher and arranger, and they said, these songs are magnificent. And I remember the publisher told me, you know, someday these songs in the future are going to be like rare bottles of wine, and they're going to be very valuable. Well, I didn't get it back then. Well, now I do. In 1967, it came out, and Tomorrow's Girl from the album was played on American Bandstand, and it was a national radio
And you
hit.
still have a copy of the album right there, right?
Yes.
Let's see that.
And
Let's
he just showed it on the screen.
Right. But I want to touch it because
And
now it's worth
$1,000 a copy
$1,000
if you find one sealed.
Sealed.
And a guy found one in a garage sale for $2.50. And then he found out what it was worth. He looked it up in a price guide catalog. So if you find this, show the cover again, the front cover.
Yeah, look at that.
If you find one of these, if they're open and still in mint condition, they're worth at least $400 to $450. And a sealed copy, I had 7 of them left that my mom saved in the closet. And I sold them all for $1,000 a copy.
Wow.
And a guy from Norway even sent me $1,200. And I said, you sent me too much money. And he said, oh no, I'm so happy to have it. Keep the extra $200.
Wow.
So I've got this one and one sealed on my wall in my studio.
So give me the names of the guys here. That's you on the left.
And then
that's you right there on the left.
And then
and who's next to you?
Next to me is John Oliver.
John Oliver, and next to John Oliver is
Dick Lee.
Dick Lee,
who you met at my birthday.
That's right, I met him. But he looked a lot different when I met him.
Well, yeah, 50 years later. And Bill Dodd down in the corner.
Bill Dodd down in the corner right there.
Yeah.
Wow, so I'm holding $1,000 in my hand. Now, if I'd had $100 back when these came out, I could have bought how many for $100?
Well, they would be, I think they were $3.98 when they came out.
So I could have bought at least 21 or 22 of these.
That's what I thought.
And now I'd have $22,000 in my hand.
I told Stephen, your engineer, I wished I would have thrown 100 of them in the closet. It would have been $100,000, but I didn't know.
If we only knew.
Yeah.
And we were young.
The other thing is the song I was talking about, Tomorrow's Girl, that was on Dick Clark's American Bandstand, jump forward to 2011, it came out on a LA Nuggets Warner Rhino box set that was nominated for a Grammy. Wow. From the '67 album. And then after that, a song called Supermarket from the album was mentioned in Thomas Pynchon's novel Inherent Vice that they made a movie of. And now Lila has been picked to be in Chappaquiddick.
Movie which premieres, has its film premiere?
December 8th in Hollywood. It'll be an industry premiere, and then next year, the first part of next year, it'll be in theaters all over. Academy Awards Board has already viewed it, and they say there's a good possibility that Jason Clarke will be nominated for an Oscar for playing Ted Kennedy, that he did such a good job, and that the movie itself will get a nomination also. So
Bruce Dern plays Joe Kennedy?
Yeah, I loved Bruce Dern.
Bruce Dern plays Joe Kennedy.
Old character actor.
And Clancy Brown is going to be playing
Robert McNamara.
And Kate Mara plays Mary Jo Kopechne.
Yeah.
A lot of people stumble over Mary Jo's name, but I didn't. She was a beautiful young lady. I believe, Merle, if they were to resurrect her coffin and examine it, they would find a baby fetus still there.
She was pregnant by somebody.
She was pregnant by somebody, and Ted Kennedy, if you don't know it, his marriage has always been on the rocks. I mean, for a long, long time. And he finally did get divorced, didn't his wife, Mrs. I think she
don't
did.
know.
She finally divorced him. And of course, Ted Kennedy's dead now.
You know,
the whole Kennedy family is really.
Here's another odd thing. When I was playing in Hollywood and I was living there in the '60s, We would play at all of the hot spots like the Starwood, Coconut Grove, the Ambassador Hotel. Well, we had a gig there one night, and we always loaded up through the freight elevator, went part way through the kitchen, and then on the stage there. It was the stage and the ballroom where Robert Kennedy gave his last speech, and we're pushing the equipment in, and Bill Dodd says, "Look at the floor." There was still the chalk outline of where Robert Kennedy was laying and had been shot, and we just went, holy smokes.
Yeah, you were right on the spot. I was there too at the Ambassador, which was torn down about, I think, 6, 7, 8 years ago. They totally demolished Ambassador Hotel on Wilshire. It's not there.
I'll be darned.
There's nothing you can go see anymore. So
we played at the Coconut Ballroom, which was, you know, a famous place.
Yeah, it was famous.
I'm surprised they demolished that too.
So this comes out in a film for the public. It'll be on studios. You're hearing about it here first, November 22nd, 2017. But in 2018, January and February, it'll be in movie theaters everywhere. I think we should give
It has a lot of historical news stuff in it.
There comes Chappaquiddick with a vengeance. I guess Kennedy knew the aircraft he was walking in. Never saw this. Never.
Wow.
Wow.
As you can see, people, from that, and I know Merrell is really not into political assassinations. It's the farthest thing from what he does. He's a happy music guy who loved to play in Hawaii. But you see, Kennedy's assassinated on my 18th birthday in 1963. Exactly what, 54 years ago today in Dallas. Dorothy Kilgallen, who was on a talk show called What's My Line? Dorothy Kilgallen, she suddenly dies because she was the one reporter that knew the CBS reporter we all know and love, and he's still alive, was lying to us when they told us Lee Harvey Oswald did it, because she had interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald immediately after they did the paraffin test and fingerprinted him, and she was the first and only reporter because she knew the murder investigator personally. She had hung around Della. She knew all the ins and outs. And she was cute and young, and they just let her go in there and interview him. He hadn't been charged with killing Kennedy yet. They were thinking they were going to charge him with killing Officer Tibbets. So you have 63. That's cover-up, and Nixon had to be in on it. George Herbert Walker Bush was the CIA operative running the assassination, in my opinion, and everybody that studied it all. Then Bob Kennedy, or Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, who had been the former Attorney General, he figured it out really quick when he saw the corpse of the one they said was President Kennedy in the casket. He says, that doesn't look anything like Jack. And then Jacqueline Kennedy, President Kennedy's wife, says, that's not Jack.
Wow.
And the people say, oh, don't worry about her. She's just upset seeing her husband dead. No, she had had a few days to get over the fact, because she was right there when his head was blown off from the front, from the curb. And that's why you need to see my show that just aired last night, because finally we've got investigators who brought all the truth. I think Bobby Kennedy knew all this, Merrell. That's why he was going to run for president. He was going to take George Herbert Walker Bush down. He was going to take Nixon down. He was going to take FDI director, where they wanted to fire anyway, J. Edgar Hoover. All these top guys in our government, all connected to the FBI and the CIA, and they're intermeshing with the Cuban group that they wanted to pass off the Bay of Pigs responsibility for. Sturgis, he later admitted, yeah, we killed Kennedy. He admitted it on film. That was in what I ran last night. So it's very apropos that Merrell, who's the least political person I know in my world of celebrities, he is like, not interested. And here his song, Lila, is in this movie, Chappaquiddick, which is all about this embarrassment. And I'm sure the people who wanted the Kennedys dead did not want Ted Kennedy. And I personally think Ted Kennedy was probably always a lush. But the people from the Bush crime syndicate, they couldn't have orchestrated this better. Now they got rid of Jack, they got rid of Bobby Kennedy, and now they got rid of Ted. No more Kennedys going to come up and get vengeance or justice for Jack Kennedy, who in my opinion, and I've always been interested in this, Merrell, because he was killed on my 18th birthday.
Yeah.
And I remember exactly where I was. I know the school isn't there, but I was in high school in my senior class on the 3rd floor. And I remember the girl that was sitting next to me. She was a very well-endowed girl, which I never groped or molested. Back in those days, you just didn't do that. Charlie, just apologize to all those girls and move on. Merrell, were you ever groped?
You know, since you bring this up, from the 60s to now, I have been groped by so many groupies and lured into unsafe sex, which I denied to do. And there's been a lot of them, William.
Females.
Females. And
some of them big stars in Hollywood.
Yes, and
they came for more than your music. You were a stud.
Somebody said, well, you ought to sue them all now. That's the popular thing to do. Find the ones that own property and have fat bank accounts. And stand up for all male musicians everywhere. And it's a funny skit. I think I'll sell it to Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, you should sell that skit to Saturday Night Live. I've been molested too.
Yeah.
I've been molested too.
It's not just women, you know. There's some wild women out there.
There are some wild women.
Yeah.
I Love Lucy. Remember her?
Yeah.
I mean,
she was great.
She was wonderful in her comedy stint, but
Carol Burnett was another one.
Carol Burnett was another great comedy, but Lucy, after she divorced Ricky, she had a series of young boyfriends, and I can't remember them.
I didn't know that.
You know, and I think she married him. But I just wonder if we're going to grab everybody who ever groped everybody, will there be anybody left in television land? Will there be anybody left? I mean, take all the top executives from ABC, CBS, Fox News, CNN, BBC. Will there be anybody left? Or will we end up with television hosts on CBS and all that will all be females. They'll all, because they have no testosterone, they'll all be past menopause. What a boring shows you will have. I think, you know, what Charlie Rose did was not acceptable. I'll give you that. But I think it flows both ways. And I think a lot of times women use their sexuality hoping they can get a powerful man into a compromising position, and then he will give her the part or the
And what gets me
job.
is why did some of these women wait 30 plus years to all of a sudden come up with this now?
That's a very good question, Merrell. Why, ladies? All you ladies that appeared on CBS, why did you wait 30 years? You mean you're outraged? You weren't outraged then, but now the times have changed? That's sort of like, well, the times have changed. Pot is legal in California, right?
Think so?
I think so, although they just made a big bust down in Santa Ana, which I think was terrible what the police did at the end of the show here today. You don't want to miss this. I mean, right now I'm just amazed that this movie from Brian Allen's Entertainment Studios is already being touted as some kind of nod at the 2018 Academy Awards. Are you going to be going to the Academy Awards, Merrell?
People keep asking me, what am I going to wear? And I said, well, let's wait and see what happens. I'm just hoping they put out a soundtrack album on it, because they gave me a gave me a nice advance, $1 advance for using it, but the real money is when they put out a soundtrack album, because I sang it, I performed it, I wrote the song, and I own the publishing and the copyright. And because, no, I played in a group, that the Revels, that had a song in Pulp Fiction. And the guy that wrote that owned the publishing and copyright. They made a soundtrack album on that, and it went triple platinum, and his first check was $738,000.
Not $738, but $738,000.
Yes.
Can I be him for a year or so? I could use $738,000.
So I'm hoping for a Chappaquiddick soundtrack album, and from what I hear from the producers and the agent that got this lovely deal for me, Jody Friedman at HD Music Now.
Thank you, Jody.
Yes, there's a lot of good 60s music in this movie.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good songs in your Frappadockley.
Fappadockley. Yeah.
Explain us again how you came up with that name, because I'm sure people just tuned in, they missed it.
I took the last name of each person in the band at the time and took the first few letters of each name, F.A. for Fankhauser, my last name, P.A.R. for Dan Parrish, who was a bass player at the time, D.O. for Bill Dodd, who was the other guitar player, and Dick Lee was the drummer. So it came out Fappadockley, and everybody loves it now. It's like it's a psychedelic, they call it, classic album worth, if you find one sealed, as we mentioned, $1,000 a copy.
Yeah, if you're going to the Pomo Swap Meet or someplace like that, and you find one that's sealed and they're selling it for like 20 bucks or something, slip them to 20 bucks, because you just made yourself $1,000.
Oh yeah, I know people that did that and found them. The one guy that contacted me that had me sign it, he found one at a garage sale, this has been a few years now, that paid $2.50 for it. And when he opened up the collector's catalog book and it said $750 to $1,000, he just about fell out of his chair.
I'm sure.
I didn't know this album was worth this till about 1978. And I was living in my little cabin in the rainforest on Maui, and these two German guys came down the trail and said, "We're looking for der Merrell Fankhauser." And I said, "Well, you found him." So it was Hans Kestelou and Polly Trouch from a record store in Germany. And he said, yeah, we bought a Chappaquiddick album at a swap meet in Germany for only $650. And I went, say that again? $650? And he said, yeah, I had no idea the album had gone into this cult collector's status. So I came to the mainland, to my mom's house in Arroyo Grande, and I said, Mother, do you still have that box with those Chappaquiddick albums? She said, yeah, I don't know how many there are, because I gave them away to fans and friends and family. Look in the closet, and there were 7 of them, and I made $7,200 off of all of those albums.
Achte lieber Gott, this is
yeah,
good.
This
Sehr
is
gut.
good. So I did go back to the old record company and studio I recorded at in Palmdale, and I think he had 3 of them that I bought off of him for $35 a piece. So I've got 2 sealed ones, one I brought today, one in my studio, and I have an open one in the closet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really something. You never know.
You never know in the music business.
No.
You know, this was what, 50 years ago this album came out?
1967, do the math.
67, yeah. Wow.
And it was all recorded analog, and most of the songs on it were recorded 2-track live. And in those days, you'd have to do the song 10 times till the engineer thought he had a good mix on you, because it was live and you didn't have a chance to remix it, and that's what you got. Then later on, around the end of '66, they started using 4-track analog on half-inch tape. Then you could go back, remix, add stuff, or change it.
Major change in the
Major change. Sgt. Pepper's album by the Beatles was recorded on 2 4-tracks.
2 4-track.
Analog.
Wow.
Yeah. So I still like the warm sound of analog. I have an analog board and some analog machines, but I do have digital machines too. But I don't record anything in a computer, because to me, once it gets truncated down and digitized, it loses the warmth.
You lose that fat quality. That,
yes, exactly. It sounds digital, and my good friend Bill McEwen, who produced the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and Allman Brothers and others, he calls it computer recording ice picks in the ears.
Ice picks in the ears.
Yeah.
Ice picks in the ears.
And a lot of country music is still recorded on 2-inch 16-track analog and 2-inch 24-track analog. And because they like that warmth. And then the last step, it has to go to digital to, you know, be on a CD or an iPod or...
And then you still lose some of that.
Every time they bring it down, you lose some of... Neil Young wouldn't let any of his albums be transferred to CD till they came up with a higher sampling rate for CDs.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He wanted to, and you know, vinyl is still going strong. There are labels in...
It's making a comeback in Europe.
In Europe and in the United States too. There are labels in Europe. In fact, a label in Spain is going to reissue the Chappaquiddick album on vinyl, and I have a lot of albums out over there on vinyl. Oh, I just got, you'll be interested in this, my end of the year quarter royalty statement for airplay for international airplay in Europe and South America.
Ka-ching, ka-ching.
Well, I was very surprised, because for 4 months, it's usually anywhere from $50 to $80, you know, and that's a nickel every time it gets played, which is a lot of play. Well, I went to the post office the other day, and all of a sudden, the check was almost $130 just for 4 months of radio play. So something's going on
Something's
over there.
happening in Europe.
I know I'm getting a lot of airplay because I get emails from radio stations wanting this or that, and I'm big in Australia, New Zealand, Poland, even Russia. You know, I'm on a Russian space rock compilation that they put out. So
that's amazing.
So I'm waiting on the U.S.
Right.
to see how that figures, and if all of a sudden my royalties in ASCAP for European have jumped up over the American airplay, that's gonna, and they keep wanting me to come over there and play, but for one reason after another or scheduling, I can't do it.
Well, this last summer you were going to play in Scotland or England somewhere, and then they canceled because of a possible terrorist.
Yeah. They just had the terrorist attack in Manchester.
We got to tell the Bush Crime Syndicate and the CIA, stop terrorizing us so we can have our music and enjoy life, you know.
But well, I've been with ASCAP since 1967, 68, and at one point when I had 100 songs published, which was many years ago, they gave me an award. Now I've got over 450 songs published and I think 50 albums. A guy that researched, a musicologist from the Netherlands flew over. He found I was on 122 releases worldwide on labels I didn't even know, in Brazil, in Poland, and places like that he found and showed me all these different album covers.
There's some more nickels should be coming your way, I think.
Well, the royalties for the plastic sold, it's more than nickels, but what I found on some of these, the big companies I was on, like Universal Records, licensed them to European countries and never even told me about it. The most honest I found is Warner Brothers in Rhino. They're right on about everything. So Warner Brothers, I like.
Yep, and ASCAP still matters, doesn't it?
ASCAP matters. You gotta, if you want to get radio play and you want to get your royalties,
you've got to do it.
You got to be in either ASCAP or BMI.
BMI is mostly the European.
No, it's Broadcast Music Incorporated. They started out first, and then ASCAP sort of had a bigger research.
Yeah, should we play Tomorrow's Girl?
Yeah, speaking of ASCAP and this was on the 2011 Grammy-nominated Rhino Warner Brothers Where the Action Is, LA Nuggets, 1965 to 68. It's a great box set.
Wow. Bring back some memories, Merrell?
Oh yeah, 1967, and when it was on American Bandstand, the whole band was jumping up and down, and who would have known that all the way up in 2011 it'd be on a Grammy-nominated box set.
Amazing. That's just really amazing. When you think of the years that have gone by, you think, well,
Yeah.
that's sold and
It
stayed.
did
and
its thing,
Did
and-
its thing, it's gone. And
Yeah.
everybody's in. But this Chappaquiddick movie that's going to be released, the premiere, Hollywood premiere for the industry, only December 8th, which is just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really at the cutting edge of breaking this news. And then January or February, sometime in 2018, you'll be able to go to movie theaters anywhere and see Chappaquiddick with Lila. And
We're going to play that whole song.
we're going to play that whole song for you because I got the owner, the guy that has the copyrights right here, and he's giving us permission. Here we go. Lila.
Some
What inspired you? Was it a blonde girl to do Lila?
I was married to a very beautiful blonde
That'll do it.
that looked like Jane Mansfield.
Whoa!
And I just sat down in the living room with my acoustic 12-string one night in 1966. I was living up in the desert at the time in Lancaster. Strummed a chord and the song just came out. And I find that my best songs are done in about 10 or 15 minutes. It's almost like you're channeling the song and it's already been written, and then you've got to write it down or record it on something or it'll go away.
Michael Jackson said something like that too.
Well,
he would sit down in his tree, and within a very few minutes,
yeah.
he had it. Then he just needed to put the music behind it.
I met John Lennon once at Harry Nelson's house in Hollywood, and we had a conversation about songwriting because Harry put me on the spot and made me play a song for all the people that were at his party. And John said, what inspired that? And then we started talking. He said, isn't songwriting strange? He said, all those songs in the Beatles, he said, I didn't write them. And I went, what? And he said, yeah, it was automatic writing. He said, I don't know where it came from. And we started exchanging ideas. He said, yeah, somebody will say something and that triggers a title. That's the same thing that happens to me. And then a whole song will just come out and you've got to get it down and record it because
it won't stay if you don't.
And if you hear another piece of music, somebody plays something, it might erase it. So my best songs, and John said the same thing, his best songs were all written in 15, 20 minutes tops.
There was just, I think she's like 10 or 11 years old, a young girl who said exactly the same thing. She said the music just keeps coming and she keeps composing, and she composes like Mendelssohn.
Yeah.
And the music just keeps coming. I mean, she doesn't have to think about it. It's not work. She just has to play it out and record it. And she says it's like 24/7. And some people, musicians like you, it's a gift.
It's a gift. That's what I told a bass player that played in my band Moo. He said, Merrell, I know there's a secret to songwriting. He wanted to write so bad. And he said, well, what's the secret? How do you do it? And I said, I don't know, Larry. It just comes to me. It's a gift. And he looked at Jeff and he said, see, he won't tell me the secret.
Tell me now, you started playing, the very first time was a little theater in Aurora Grande where you were, what, a ticket or?
1959, I was playing at the Fair Oaks Theater. Well, before I was playing there.
Which is still there.
Yeah. I was the cleanup guy, and I even helped him do the marquee for the movies that were coming in.
59, you were only what, 15 years old?
No, I was about
16?
17.
17 years old.
Yeah, I was still going to high school.
And so you picked up a guitar one time.
No, I was about 16. I started playing, my dad taught me to play a ukulele when I was 11. I bought a guitar, an acoustic guitar one summer.
Thank you, Dad.
Yeah, and I started right away just writing little songs and then trying to play Elvis Presley and Ricky Nelson songs. So I was sitting in one of the theater chairs when it was empty before the matinee started on Saturday, and I was playing Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson. And the manager of the theater said, hey, you've got a pretty good voice, Merrell. He said, and you sound a little like Ricky Nelson. He said, how about, he said, I used to do a clown act on the East Coast. How about we do, in between the two matinees, a little show. I'll run out in the audience and give the kids candies and balloons, and you sing 3 songs. And he says, I'll give you $12. I said, does it mean I'll get my regular $40 a week for cleaning up? Oh yeah, that'll be on top of that. And I went, okay, I'll do it. So my mom made me a fancy, shiny silver lame shirt. And he said, but Fankhauser, that name's too long. That won't work. He said, let's call you Merrell Nelson. So I said, okay. So I went along with it. And I did that, I think, for close to 9 months. And all the teeny boppers were screaming and everything. And then I'd go out into the lobby and they'd push me up against the popcorn machine and having me sign autographs.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, this is something. I think I'm in show business. And then years later, I was at a party playing in San Luis. I forget whose house it was, but some lady came up to me and she said, I was one of those teeny boppers that was screaming for you in the Fair Oaks Theater in 1959. In 60, I did it in 60.
And then you formed your first band, which was called?
Well, I didn't form the band. There was a group of high school students that were forming a band, and they heard about me playing at the theater and came and saw me. And they said, we want you to join our band.
Which was called?
The Impacts.
The Impacts.
And the sax player, Joel Rose, his father, Joel Rose Sr., owned the Rose Garden Ballroom, which is Poncho's surf shop now, and the dance floor is still there and the old stage. And so we ended up playing 3 times a week, just about Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoons.
And you made money.
And they paid us. And,
you made money.
And Delphi Records, a talent scout, heard us there, and they took us down to L.A., and I had written all these instrumental songs.
What street was Delphi Records on back in those days?
Oh, gosh. We recorded in a studio, but Delphi was on Selma, corner of Selma and Vine over a UCB bank.
Okay.
But anyhow, they signed us, and we went in and did a marathon recording session from about 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And there was more than enough songs in that one session for an album. These 2 producers put out the album on Delphi, Wipeout by the Impacts. We didn't know anything about copyrights or contracts or anything. And we came home, and a month or so later, the album was available in stores everywhere, drugstores. And my dad said, well, did you boys sign anything? And we said, were we supposed to sign something? And the producers got all of the money.
All the money.
And even signed the songs into their name.
Into their name, not Merrell's name.
And on the back of the album cover, it only had the publisher's name. That was these 2 producers who did this with some other young bands. And there were no songwriting credits. And we thought, well, that's odd. So it took till 1994, after a lot of record deals, I practically became a music attorney, and I realized what was good in a contract and what was bad. And I saw that the original contract was expiring, the copyright.
And you
I went in and re-copyrighted the songs and got them. And from 1994 on, we started getting money from that album. But that album ended up
made millions,
making $1 million, and we didn't get any of the first money. We got the crumbs that were left over, but thanks to oldies radio and TV shows that have used the song, I still get a trickle of royalties off of that and a few others.
And before we go to the next band you were part of, currently you're a DJ on
KYXZ 107.9 FM in Grover Beach. I'm on every Friday from 2 till 4, and then they rerun the first hour that's recorded on Sunday at noon. And I just did my 11th show last Friday.
So you've gone from songwriter, song player, to now you're a DJ playing other songs.
Well, I did a DJ thing at another station for about a year and a half in 1995. And I've been doing television since 1990. You can see my Tiki Lounge.
Oh yeah, I watch Tiki Lounge faithfully.
It's on the recent show. It has Jane Russell. I played in her nightclub act.
I saw that.
And
God rest her soul.
Yeah. And the show Tiki Lounge has been on for 16 years. We're going into the 17th year now, and it's seen...
I should explain who Jane Russell got famous. If you don't know, you youngsters who are under 50 years old, the name Jane Russell doesn't ring a bell, she was the first woman to be on television advertising a brassiere. And she wore the brassiere, but she wore it outside her sweater. And when we saw that, I mean, this was what, 50 years ago?
Howard Hughes invented the push-up bra for Jane Russell. It was The Lady and the Outlaw, a movie.
Oh yeah,
and
very big movie.
He invented that brassiere for Jane Russell.
Thank you, Howard Hughes. Thank you very much.
He was a genius, you know. The airplanes and helicopters and everything that he invented. He was really something.
That ad with Jane Russell wearing that white push-up bra on the outside of her sweater instead of under the sweater, it was on the outside.
I didn't see that.
I did. I was like looking for that commercial every time it would come. Is it commercial time?
It's amazing they put something like that on the air back then, because now, you know, they've got all of these very revealing
Oh, yeah. Now they wouldn't bother
things.
with the sweater. But back in that day, some 45, 50 years ago, that was shock value.
Yeah.
They tried to ban that commercial, and the more they tried to ban it, the more famous the brassiere became, and somebody made a lot of money. Yeah, I saw Jane Russell on your show, was just playing here in Santa Maria.
Yeah, it was an old show I decided to re-air that had never shown down here, and she was really nice to me, and she wanted to do all 40s music. So I was doing some 40s Hawaiian stuff and had a couple of my hula dancers there. And one night, these people that had seen me in the Rose Garden Ballroom back in the 60s started requesting Wipeout. And I went, oh no, I can't do that. Jane will fire me. So the band said, go ahead and do it. And so the lady that drove Jane to the Radisson every night, that's where we were performing, went over and convinced Jane to let me do Wipeout. So I did it, and I thought, okay, this is going to be the end of me. And she sat at a table with her friends to the side of the stage so she could come up on stage and perform when it was her time to sing. And as I was walking by, she grabbed my arm kind of smartly, and I thought, okay, this is it. And she goes, that was Hawaiian rock, Merrell, and I loved it. I said, oh, thank you, Jane. So I went, oh boy, I made it through that one. I went over to the bar to get a drink of water, and the bartender noticed there was 3 trickles of blood going down my arm. And I said, oh, she grabbed me kind of tight. Her nails must have dug in. He gave me a sanitizer and said, you better wipe that off. You might get cat scratch fever.
Thank you, Jane Russell.
But she liked me, and
she did like
and
you.
we had a good time together. And you'll see us, if you see the show, she got everybody to get up on the stage near the end and do a sing-along song to Bye Bye Baby. Remember You're My Baby.
That was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Jane Russell in her
Yeah.
heyday. I mean, she was quite a looker.
Yeah.
Jane
Wow.
Russell. Not naming any names, but he had a big plane called the Spruce Goose.
Yeah, I wanted to interview her about Howard, but she said, oh no, we don't want to get into that.
She didn't want to get into that.
Yeah. Well, I admired him for his aviation achievements because I was a pilot and my dad was a flight instructor. And
Yeah, most people don't know that.
yeah, I worked at the Santa Maria Airport and went to Hancock College to be an aeronautical engineer, and
I didn't know
had a
that.
record that took off, and I ended up on the road. My dad was disappointed that I didn't follow through with the degree, but I worked at the Santa Maria Airport, and I loaded crop dusters in the summer, and that was a dirty, poisony job.
Toxic job.
Toxic job.
Yeah, not a fun job.
But I
Well,
loved flying.
You might have ended up in the Skunk Works if you'd followed that aeronautical engineer. You might
Yeah.
you might have been out at Edwards flying one of these super secret vehicles they claim goes faster than light now.
Well, yeah.
Believe it or not. But that's a different story. Well, I'm really pleased you were able to come live on the show here today, Merrell. And I like your song, Lila. The song is still giving you rewards.
That album is giving me rewards. That's what's
But the wife is
amazing
the wife
to
that
me.
inspired the song Lila. You guys parted a long time ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
So what was the next band you were part of?
After that, Well, I had a band called Merrell and the Exiles up in the desert during that period of time, and there's a few rare
And that was 60,
records.
what, 66?
63 to 66, and then it changed to Chappaquiddick, and then after Chappaquiddick, I moved to Hollywood, and it became Merrell, Fankhauser, and HMS Bounty, and that went on till the end of 69, and then in 70, I formed the band Moo, and in 73, we moved to Maui.
After you did Moo?
With Moo, the whole band moved to Maui.
The whole band moved to
Yeah,
Maui with you?
yeah.
That must have been quite a undertaking. Was Maui Wowie available in those days?
Nobody knew about it, but people were growing it there, yeah. And then Willie Nelson found out about it, and that was his favorite
Willie Nelson found
herb of choice, so he moved to Maui and bought a house.
You know, we can talk about it now because it's been decriminalized in California, I think. It's supposed to be. We think, you know, the people in the legislature and the people of the state pass one law, but the police do something different.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that. Don't go away. We're going to show you some footage that was never supposed to get out, and it's gone viral on YouTube, and we'll show you that later. So now you're with Moo. It's 73. You're in Hawaii. You got your shack in the jungle.
Well, I hadn't built a cabin in the jungle yet. We were living in a rented house.
In Honolulu or where?
No, on Maui.
On Maui.
And in Haiku. And an engineer that had done some recording over there had some equipment left from Capitol Records, and he set it up in our house, and we did 2 albums in our house that eventually came out.
And those albums were called?
Moo.
Moo also?
Yeah, End of an Era and the last album, and they came out on European labels and American labels, and those albums are still, those are highly collectible albums too, and they've been out on CD on a few labels and bootlegged by the Italians in Italy. So it all just seems to keep going whether you like it or not, and you hope you get some money out of it. Frank Zappa even did an album called Ban the Boot. He took everything that had been bootlegged on him and put it out himself.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, it happens in other countries. They just take what they want, and what frustrates me, William, is they'll take songs from albums that are 10 years apart and put them together. I like everything to be historically correct and chronological, and they'll mess that up. And then somebody will say, oh, have you seen this bootleg? And, you know, it's got songs from different albums they've just taken and put together, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, if you had a brother who was an attorney, you could do something about it.
I'm on a Jimi Hendrix tribute doing All Along the Watchtower that a Italian label put out. I didn't even know they put it out, and it had a lot of famous guitar players on it. Steve Lukather from Toto, Jonathan Richman, Larry Coryell, and the list goes on and on. Well, this agent in San Francisco got a lot of us the deal with this label in Italy. So the album came out, and I didn't even know it was out till Jimi Hendrix's fan club president that puts out a fanzine, a magazine, got a hold of me and said, oh, I really like that version of All Along the Watchtower. It's on this Italian label. I went, what? They put it out? And he said, yeah. So he sent me a copy of it.
His name was?
I don't remember his name now.
Oh. But he still puts it out? Or
No, he's...
This was back in that day.
He just, the record company in Italy sent it to him.
Oh,
he's here in the United States.
Oh, okay.
In Seattle. So this agent got an Italian lawyer in San Francisco that could speak Italian. They were going to go over because all these other bands were complaining that they never got any royalties. They were going to go to Italy and sue them and go to court. And when the attorney investigated the Mangora brothers, they went, no, we're not going over there. And the agent said, why? And he said, They'll just shoot us in the hotel instead of going to court with us, and that'll be the end of it. So nobody ever got anything. Capiche?
Capiche?
Yeah.
So nobody got anything.
No. But it's a nice album. It's called Gypsy Blood 2. And I'm the last song on the album, and then they have an interview of Jimi Hendrix speaking, which is a nice spot, and it's Merrell Fankhauser all along the Watchtower. Gypsy Blood Volume 2. You can eBay it, and it's out there.
Prego. Prego.
Yeah.
So after that, which was the next band that you were?
Well, after Moo broke up, we did a concert in Hanamaui with David Carradine and Bonnie Bramlett from Delaney and Bonnie, and that was filmed. And that was
filmed?
Yeah, and I never got to see the film. My agent Audrey Franklin in LA saw it, but it was going to come out in theaters, and it never did because they didn't get releases from all the people that were in it. David Carradine performed, sang, Bonnie did, and our band Moo was the starring band that they filmed. And that was the middle of 1974, and after that, Moo disbanded, and I met a violinist named Mary Lee, and we formed a duo and started playing on the island. And then we got a recording contract in LA, and I put out...
Mary Lou?
With Mary Lee.
Mary Lee.
Playing in the band with me. And we had Bill Berg, who had played on Bob Dylan albums in the sessions. And some of it was done at Universal's recording studio. And that album came out as a solo album, Merrell Fankhauser, the Maui album. It's out on vinyl on several labels, and it's also out on CD. So after that, I decided no more band names, because if somebody in the band quits or the band quits, you've lost all of the publicity you put into it. So I just went with my whole name ever since.
Merrell Fankhauser.
And I've done probably 18 solo albums now that are out there.
18 solo albums. Since what year? 76?
76. 76 is when the Maui album came out, and it's been reissued, probably a half a dozen times on various labels, from Sweden to England to the US. I'm probably forgetting somewhere.
Let me go back to that film that never got released.
The live performance on Maui. I tried
Who do you think has that film right now?
The company was called Megas Films, and they showed it in a closed screening in Hollywood, and our producer, or our main agent at the time, Audrey Franklin, said it was fabulous, and there was a 40-foot waterfall in back of us, and Red Shepard, the Broadway star of Hair, it was his house, and he paid to have it all done.
He's probably got the film.
No, he doesn't. I've contacted him. It all went with this Megas Film company that was in Hollywood, and I've tried to find them, and they no longer exist, and nobody knows where the film went.
A job for a good detective.
Well, they had detectives looking, and they still couldn't find it, so...
Do you know who the names were behind Magnus?
No, but I've got something written down somewhere in my file cabinet at home. But I've researched all of that, and other people have hired... and Ramblin' Jack Elliott was on that concert also. So these things happen, you know. People
It's just amazing. You can film and produce that, and then it just
disappears. Yeah.
I'll bet you one day somebody's going to come up with that, and they're going to sell it.
I hope they do.
And they're going to make a pile of money because nobody's ever seen it before.
It was shot on two 35 millimeter professional movie cameras. But that was Maui.
Did it ever get edited between the two different films? Did it get edited into one?
Oh yeah, Audrey Franklin saw it as a finished product.
As a finished product.
Yeah, but they didn't have it ready for release, and then they started trying to get everybody to sign away their publishing rights to the songs. And David Carradine, as I heard, his management said, forget it right away, that you're going to have to pay us. And Bonnie Bramlett's manager wanted to get paid, of course. And, you know, those things are tricky. They should have had all of that taken care of before they filmed it.
Yep, before they filmed it.
Yeah.
That's when you can do the best negotiating.
Yes. Well, you want to have that done before it gets filmed.
Yeah, afterwards, it's a tricky business. And capiche? That's for my Italian friends that watch in Italy.
Yeah.
They're not all mafia, but...
oh, that's nice to know.
It is nice to know. And you know, I went there in 2012. I was in Naples. I was talking to them about the Michael Jackson trial because, to my amazement, even though Italian, Japanese, Korean, British, German, French, Portuguese, every major nation had a television crew during the Michael Jackson trial in '05, but in Europe, they played none of it. They got nothing for 5 months. And then when it was over, they still got nothing from the trial. So they knew none of the details. So I made a trip twice in Europe in 2012 and 2013. And I'm just talking to Michael Jackson fans to give them the details so they could understand why Michael was really, truly not guilty. Because our corporate media totally failed here. They totally fell down on the job. ABC, Fox News, CNN, and I even got one of the attorneys on film, and it's on YouTube. And I stuck my microphone in his face right after the jury verdict was read. And I says, "What do you got to say?" He says, "All right, William, you were right. You were the only one that called it right. Go to Las Vegas and bet on red." I had to ask somebody what that meant because I never gamble. I don't drink. I'm a very boring person. Ask Merrell. I'm very boring. But it's
Get
true.
in some interesting situations.
I get in some interesting situations, but other than that, I'm a very boring person. So I guess that's the long shot. You bet on red, and that's the impossible long shot. It wasn't impossible. I was watching the evidence, and the evidence was so clear that Tom Sneddon had manufactured all this garbage and probably bribed the children to lie, and that's how it went. And so I'm in Europe, and I'm giving them all this information, the details. So how, if someone says to a Michael Jackson fan, "Well, I think he was guilty anyway," I want them to have details that they could speak out, that they heard directly from me, because I was watching the trial in the courtroom every day for 5 months, except for 3 days they kicked me out for shaking Jackie and Tito Jackson's hand in the courtroom, which was a big no-no. I didn't do an interview, but they said I did. But other than those 3 days, I was there every day, and then I watched in the overflow room for about a week. So I'm giving the fans this, and they're so happy. The fans, Merrell, took me out for this huge dinner at a big fancy restaurant up on the hill in Naples with a great view. There's a big ancient Catholic church right nearby. And the fans paid for it all. And there was like about 17, 18 fans that came with me, and they wanted to hear more. And the restaurant wasn't even open. They opened a restaurant just for me because one of the fans knew the owner of the restaurant, and it was a big deal. And they took me in this van, and they'd be going around these curvy streets in Naples. And I said, "Why don't we just go down there?" "Oh, no, mafia, that we don't go that street." I'm like, "Really?" "We're in mafia territory." "Yeah, we're going to go around. We're going to avoid that." And by in a twisted way, we got to the restaurant. And they gave me warnings, like when you leave Naples to go to the islands, I went to one of the islands for a day or two, they said, "Be very careful where you come back in Naples. You know, got to be careful." So from there down to Sicily, I guess the mafia rules just as much as the Italian government. So, but the fans took really good care of me, Merle. They drove me all the way up to Rome. That night, they drove me up to Rome. Got a room late. They had prepared a place for, I had a room, a little hotel. I didn't realize how expensive it was till I checked out. And then I found out what a gift that was. And then the next day I was on a Rome, Italy television show. And all we talked about was the trial. But I had a translator. So it was all done in Italian and English, and my version of that is on YouTube. But the fans can keep you going, Merle, a very long time, and you have a lot of fans. I guess that's my point. You've got a lot of fans that love your music, your moo music. I think you deserve to make some money, and I hope they come out with this Chappaquiddick. I hope they do the soundtrack.
Yeah, the
then you'll
soundtrack album will be good. And you know, the surf music, because I started off in instrumental surf, and Delphi ended up putting several of our songs on compilation albums. There's one called Big Surf Hits and Beach Party, you know, the extra songs we recorded. And at first we didn't get any money for those either. Well, then in the 80s, instrumental surf music came back real big. Then in 1994, Quentin Tarantino decided to use it in Pulp Fiction, which made all of those old groups from the 60s come back in a big way, plus new ones. And DJs started writing me, saying, when are you going to put out another surf album? And I said, well, the impacts are all gone now. Most of them have passed away. And so I started sitting down with the band I was playing with here on the Central Coast, and I started writing more instrumentals again and coming up with some good stuff. So we did the first one, and I called it Rockin' and Surfin', because there was a guy, Rockin' Robert Hutchinson, on a station in Cincinnati that played all of my instrumental stuff religiously. His whole show was instrumental surf, vintage and any newer stuff. So he kept wanting me to do an album, and I said, okay, I'll do one and dedicate it to you and call it Rockin' and Surfin'. So I did volume 1, sent it back to him. He started using a song on it that I titled Rockin' and Surfin' as his theme song. So then other DJs heard it and said, hey, well, we want that. So it ended up getting on about 150 stations, that just by word of mouth.
Wow.
So then I started letting other stations that communicated with me say, would you be interested in some of this new instrumental surf? So then the previous stations said, well, we want a new one now. So I've done 4 volumes of Rockin' and Surfin' starting in 2000, and I think the last one I did was 2012.
Wow.
And now I have interest to reissue all of those, because I just put them out on my own label just to satisfy these DJs.
Amazing.
And now they want to put them out maybe in a box set. So
box set coming, people. So we're here live in the studio, November 22nd, 2017, with the famous celebrity Merrell Finkhauser, from over 100 songs published. And this one song, Lila, look for it. We played it for you, and we'll play it when we go out tonight. In the movie, Chappaquiddick, a very political movie about the kind of stuff I usually talk about. But Merrell is the most non-political person you want to. That's why you rarely see Merrell and I in the same set together, because he's all about the music and good feelings, and I love to watch Merrell's Tiki Lounge.
Which you can see right here on
Right
Channel
here.
25.
Channel 25 in San
six
Marino.
times a week.
6 times a week.
The Jane Russell show is running right now.
Right now.
And it'll be on all the rest of the week. I don't remember all the times, but I do remember Sunday. It's on at 6:30 here on Channel 25, Comcast Cable.
And I caught it Sunday. It was a good show. I enjoyed it, Merle.
Good.
I always enjoy Tiki Lounge. If you're not getting Tiki Lounge, people, you're shortchanging yourself. Especially if you're over 50. You know, you're up in our age group. So with that, I want to take you, and thank you very much for being here, Merle. It's a real pleasure. I mean, Merle's not just a great musician, he's also my friend, and a good friend. And he inspired my son Adam, who just came out with his own CD. He helped with John Henry Cassani, who's an up-and-coming musician. Right now, I want to take you because supposedly California has decriminalized marijuana. Watch this. There's no sound, but the video is amazing as the police bust in, and this was just like a week ago. It's gone viral on YouTube. Police are busting into a pot shop, and then they start to steal stuff. They take the cameras that are recording the bust off the wall. Watch. Here you see the Santa Ana police kicking in the outer door, and just like thugs, they're busting in. And I don't know why we don't have the audio, but it's on YouTube. And you'll see this female right there on the left. And a little while, you'll see one of the marijuana patients is an amputee. She's got a leg amputated. And one of the other officers asked her, "Did you punch that woman?" And she said, I could have punched her in her stump. There's the amputee woman. And the female police officer is... she can't lay down on the floor. She's in a wheelchair, and you can see her left leg is amputated about the knee. And she makes this wisecrack. Now, when I viewed it, there was still audio, but maybe they've taken the audio out. Why would you make a crack about punching a woman who's an amputee? Here's where she makes the crack about kicking her in her effing nub. The other cop asked her, "Did you punch that woman?" She says, "No, I was about to kick her in her effing nub." Is that really necessary for police officers to talk like that after they've already busted in? Now watch, they start taking the cameras down. They don't want to be recorded. And if you look closely, you see that some of them, police officers, are doing things there they should not be doing. It's got nothing to do with their illegal bus, which they undoubtedly claim was a illegal bus. I called Santa Ana Police Department and asked, and they gave me their public relations officer's number who didn't want to talk about this. Now they're taking down the surveillance camera that is catching them. And I would say all these police officers need not only to be removed from the police department, they need to be put on trial for assault, breaking and entering, trespass, criminal trespass, and criminal damage. I mean, why do they need to cut the wires to cut off the video? And the only reason I think we have this is from 2:15, but it just got up on YouTube, I think, a week or two ago. And it's gone viral because of the comment that female police officer made about punching the amputee in her nub. I just think this is, now you see the officers eating edibles and playing darts. Since when is it their job to bust in, arrest all the people in there or usher them out, and then start playing darts? Supposedly this is a drug bust, and now they're eating some of the edibles. Is that the police officer's job, to eat the stuff they're busting? I mean, this is very disturbing footage. Now, if this happened just before the law decriminalized, I could see why this might be a legal bust at that time. But it points out to me that even when marijuana was illegal, and if you know me, any of you know me, I never do marijuana. I hate the smell of pot. It reminds me of things in Vietnam. I never did it then. But this is vandalism by the Santa Ana Police Department. And I just thought you needed to see this. You needed to see what, here's the police playing darts while they're on duty after they make a drug bust in this place in Santa Ana. And it's caught on tape. Caught on tape. And of course they're replaying this. But eventually, the police officers take down this surveillance camera. I think there should be some repercussions to these police officers. Even if marijuana was, or some of the marijuana products may have been illegal, I don't know. I haven't been able to get the public relations officer for the Santa Ana Police to return my call yet. But Merrell Frankhauser, who was just with us here in the studio, would tell you there are good municipal uses for medical marijuana. And obviously the amputee woman who had her left leg amputated, she probably had some memory pain of when she used to have a full leg. And the marijuana, I am told by people that use it, helps digestion, and it helps people cope with memory pain. You get a pain from a part of your body that isn't there anymore. The nerves are still feeling the memory of the pain from the amputation or whatever caused the traumatic injury. But really, is it their job to eat their lunch from stuff they find in the pot shop? Is this what you expect your police to do? I used to know a policeman back in Green Bay, Wisconsin, back in the 70s before I moved to California. His name was Larry. And Larry had told me after he was getting off the police department, first he was removed to desk duty only, and then Larry was removed from the police department just after he qualified to get his pension, I think. And his wife and him got divorced. But he told me they used to raid porn shops. And most of the porn they confiscated went home to the personal homes of the Green Bay Police Department. It didn't go into the evidence locker. Well, I'm putting on my hat and thanking you people for tuning in.